Thank you for tuning in to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast. If you have not, be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/finish the fight, where we have some amazing merch and plenty of other things for you guys. Welcome back to Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast,
where we produce and develop the highest quality gaming research in podcast form.
I am your host, Alex Kendall.
And I am your host, Derek Baker.
And today we're making it to round 2 for a game that we covered earlier, but we're covering a sequel. I think the better of the two, honestly. It added a lot more into it. You see a lot more of the memes. It's created its own subgenre of it. And today we're going to be talking about Sonic Adventure 2.
Sonic Adventure 2 has one of the most iconic opening levels in a video game, I think, ever.
Mm-hmm.
There's bands that do tours where they play this song to try and, wind up the crowd with Sonic music. This is definitely a very memed game for sure. I love the first Sonic Adventure, don't get me wrong. I think it's like a fun, unique game with sort of a unique story as well. But yeah, Sonic Adventure 2, introducing good and bad, where you get to kind of see both perspectives. You get Shadow the Hedgehog, who's one of the coolest introductions, I think, of a new character of all time. Just a really, really fun game.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Sonic Adventure 2 is a 2001 platform game developed by Sonic Team USA and published by Sega. It was the final Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Dreamcast after Sega left the home console market. It features two good versus evil stories. Sonic the Hedgehog, Tails and Knuckles the Echidna attempt to save the world, while Shadow the Hedgehog, Dr. Eggman, and Rouge the Bat attempt to conquer it. The stories are divided into 3 gameplay styles: fast-paced platformer for Sonic and Shadow, multi-directional shooting for Tails and Eggman, and action exploration for Knuckles and Rouge. Development began soon after the American release of Sonic Adventure in 1999 and lasted 18 months. Sonic Adventure 2 was produced in commemoration of the Sonic series' 10th anniversary and was designed to be faster paced and more action-oriented than the original. The development team also expanded upon the presence of the Chow creatures and other player characters. Its locations were influenced by American locations such as San Francisco and Yosemite National Park. Sega announced Sonic Adventure 2 in October 1999 and exhibited at E3 2000. It was released on June 19, 2001 in the United States, then worldwide on June 23, 2001. Sonic Adventure 2 received general positive reviews for its gameplay variety, visuals, and audio, though some criticized its camera, voice acting, and plot. An enhanced port for the GameCube, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, was released in late 2001 in Japan and early 2002 in North America and Europe. It features improved textures and multiplayer options. Together, the Dreamcast and GameCube versions sold more than 2 million copies worldwide. Sonic Adventure 2 was also released as a DLC game for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Windows in 2012.
So we all know Sega. Let's talk a little bit about the studio behind this. So of course we do actually have an episode where we talk about how Sonic came to be for Sega in their search for a mascot. So we're going to kind of do a quick summary in this one. If you want more information about that, go and check that episode out. But Sonic Team USA, later Sega Studios USA, was a division of Sega and of Sonic Team, while Sonic Team was a subsidiary company. It was founded when 12 Sonic Team members, including Takasha Iizuka, relocated to San Francisco, California in 1999, and was a subsidiary of Sonic Team Limited by 2000. The team worked on game development, translation, and market studies in the United States until they returned to Japan and merged back into Sonic Team in 2008. Sonic Team USA translated Sonic Adventure and tested ChuChu Rocket in America before beginning work on Sonic Adventure 2. They took inspiration from their location in San Francisco, as well as Yosemite National Park and other areas of the United States. Sonic Adventure 2 was developed by Sonic Team USA, a former American division of Sonic Team, and published by Sega. It was directed and produced by longtime series contributors Takashi Iizuka and Yuji Naka, respectively. Development began shortly after the release of the American version of Sonic Adventure in September 1999 and lasted 18 months. It was designed to be more action-oriented than the slower, more story-based adventure. The development team ran the game at 60 frames per second with tempo, giving Sonic a variety of actions rather than focusing on speed alone. Its levels facilitated this flow, making Sonic seem faster. All 6 playable characters have roughly equal gameplay time, unlike Adventure, in which some characters had short stories. The levels and environments were inspired by San Francisco, where Sonic Team had its office, and other American locations, such as Yosemite National Park, where the team vacationed, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Compared to Adventure, the sequel was intended to have more of an American flavor. Although the level design prioritized the frame rate, it was more streamlined than Adventure because of the team's experience with Dreamcast hardware. Whereas Sonic Team had tried to include as much content as possible in Sonic Adventure, for the sequel they only concentrated on the elements they deemed necessary. Naka said Sonic Adventure 2 was also easier to develop, as Sonic Team could now tap the full power of the console and deliver a much better experience. Iizuka described the Chao as a relative neutral entity in Sonic Adventure. In the sequel, the developers expanded their presence, adding the ability to raise Hero and Dark Chao to reflect the conflict between good and evil. Chao have the ability to socialize, so they resemble a real artificial life form. Sonic Team showcased Sonic Adventure 2 with a trailer at E3 2000 and uploaded the trailer to its website on June 30th. Sonic Team posted a trailer and a number of screenshots on May 30th, 2001, with Sega promoting Sonic Adventure 2 as the last Sonic game for the Dreamcast and as marking the series' 10th anniversary. Sega held a 10th anniversary party for Sonic in June 2001, at which attendees could compete in a battle tournament. The winner played against Iizuka.
Now, when it came to the gameplay, Sonic Adventure 2 is a 3D platform game divided into 2 campaigns, Hero and Dark. In the Hero campaign, players control Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, who fight to save the world. And in the Dark campaign, we have the opposite, where you play as Shadow the Hedgehog, Dr. Eggman, and Rouge the Bat, fighting to conquer it. Each campaign cycles through levels of its 3 characters, telling different sides of the story. Levels have a variety of themes, such as cities, jungles, desert pyramids, and outer space, with some followed by boss fights. The 2 campaign stories occur in parallel. Completing both campaigns unlocks a last story with all 6 characters, culminating in a final boss fight. Sonic and Shadow play fast-paced levels, emphasizing platforming. Their homing attack can lock onto robots created by Eggman and Gun, and they can grind on rails. Tails and Eggman's levels are slower and oriented toward multi-directional shooting. They are confined to mechs in which they can jump short heights, hover, and shoot enemies. Knuckles and Rouge levels are open and feature action-adventure gameplay with treasure hunting. In each level, they must find 3 shards of the Master Emerald. Their search is guided by radar and puzzle-based clues from harmless robots. Knuckles and Rouge can glide, defeat enemies with punches and kicks, and scale walls, digging into them to find power-ups.
Adventure 2 has the health system found in many other Sonic games. The player collects rings scattered throughout the levels. Being hit by an enemy while holding rings causes the player to drop them all, while being hit without rings causes them to lose a life. Tails and Eggman have health bars, which are slowly refilled by collecting rings. Dying with no lives results in a game over screen. The characters can obtain permanent upgrades that grant them new abilities. For example, one allows Sonic and Shadow to dash along a sequential trail of rings to reach distant platforms. One gives Tails and Eggman hover jets that slows your descent in order to cross large gaps, while another lets Knuckles and Rouge dig into the ground to uncover treasure and Master Emerald pieces. Separate from the main campaigns, the player can raise Chao as virtual pets. They have 5 attributes: swim, fly, run, power, and stamina, and a moral continuum from hero to dark. From the moment they hatch, their stats can be increased with chaos drives or small animals found in the main stages, which empower them to compete in karate and racing minigames. Their alignment gradually changes based on their affection for the characters. For example, a Chow which likes Tails will gradually become more heroic. Playing with Chow increases affection, and when a Chow becomes fully hero or dark, it assumes that form permanently. Although Chow eventually die, if they receive enough affection during their lives, they reincarnate.
Adventure 2 has 180 emblems, earned for a variety of tasks. Each level has 5 missions. Only the first is required to continue the campaign, and other missions include completing a harder version of a level and collecting 100 rings. The player earns emblems by completing missions and other tasks, many relating to Chow raising. Collecting all of the emblems unlocks a 3D version of the Green Hill Zone stage from the original Sonic the Hedgehog. The game has several two-player modes. Players may race on foot through new or altered levels, have shoot-'em-up battles and mechs, hunt for Master Emerald shards, or race in go-karts. A few characters are playable in these modes, but not in the main game. Tikal and Chaos from the original Sonic Adventure are playable in the treasure hunting game, as are Amy Rose and Metal Sonic in the foot racing levels, and Mech Pilots by Chow and Big the Cat, one of the best characters in the game, who is replaced by a Dark Chow in battle, is in the shooting levels.
It's true. Love Big the Cat.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about this plot, which, as we said, was not quite as much of the focus of the game as the first Sonic Adventure, but still a pretty big part of it considering the two perspectives. Learning of a secret weapon from the diary of his deceased grandfather, Professor Gerald Robotnik, Eggman, infiltrates a high-security GUN facility and revives it using a Chaos Emerald. The weapon, a black hedgehog and self-proclaimed ultimate life form named Shadow, offers to help Eggman conquer the world, telling him to rendezvous at an abandoned space colony, Ark, with more Chaos Emeralds. Shadow goes to Central City, encountering Gun's forces after stealing an emerald. Shadow has vowed to fulfill a promise to a girl, Maria, which he interprets as one of revenge. Shadow blasts through the military force and meets Sonic. After a brief confrontation, Shadow escapes and Gun captures Sonic, whom they mistake for Shadow. Meanwhile, Knuckles encounters Rouge and Eggman, who try to steal the Master Emerald. He stops them by shattering the emerald and searches for the scattered shards. Rouge, spying for the government, heads to Eggman's base and the Ark. There, Shadow shows Eggman the Eclipse Cannon, another super weapon created by Gerald, and discloses his plan: to charge the cannon with Chaos Emeralds and use it to take over the world. Rouge appears, offering them a Chaos Emerald to gain their trust.
Tails and Amy infiltrate Gun's island base and rescue Sonic, while Eggman, Shadow, and Rouge collect 3 emeralds on the island. Eggman makes a global broadcast, threatening to fire on the Earth in 24 hours if his demands are not met, demonstrating the cannon's power by using it to destroy half the moon. Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles use a Chaos Emerald in their possession to track down the other 6. They infiltrate Eggman's base, boarding his shuttle shortly before it launches into space. Knuckles' Master Emerald shards are spilled along the way, and he leaves to collect them. He fights Rouge again, but when he saves her from falling into a lava pit, she relinquishes her shards and he restores the Master Emerald. On the Ark, Tails reveals he has made a counterfeit Chaos Emerald to destroy the Eclipse Cannon. As Sonic is about to use it, Eggman tells him that he has captured Tails and Amy, forcing him to return and rescue them. Sonic tries to trick Eggman with the fake emerald, but Eggman sees through the plan and jettisons him in an escape pod rigged with explosives. Tails, thinking Sonic is dead, defeats Eggman. Sonic uses the power of the fake emerald to escape. Shadow is sent to intercept him.
Regardless of who wins the fight, Eggman sneaks away from Tails and Amy with the last emerald and arms the Eclipse Cannon. The entire colony suddenly starts falling, and a pre-recorded message from Gerald is broadcast globally. He programmed the Ark to collide with Earth if the emeralds were used, destroying it in revenge for the government condemning his research and killing his colleagues, including his granddaughter Maria. Everyone but Shadow works together to access the cannon's core and neutralize the Ark using the Master Emerald. Amy pleads for Shadow's help, allowing him to remember what Maria really requested of Shadow, for him to help mankind. Shadow catches up with Sonic and Knuckles in the core as they encounter the Bio-Lizard, a prototype ultimate life form. Shadow repels it, allowing Knuckles to deactivate the Chaos Emeralds with the Master Emerald. The Bio-Lizard uses Chaos Control to fuse with the cannon, becoming the final hazard, and continuing the Ark's collision course. Sonic and Shadow use the Emeralds to transform into their super forms, defeating the final hazard and using Chaos Control to teleport the Ark back into stable orbit. This depletes Shadow's energy and he plummets to Earth, content and fulfilling his promise to Maria. The people on Earth celebrate as the heroes return home and Sonic bids Shadow farewell.
So overall, still a pretty good story going throughout. And one of the most important things coming up is really, I think, what drives Sonic Adventure 2 above Sonic Adventure is the music. So as with Sonic Adventure, Jun Senoue served as sound director and lead composer. Additional music was contributed by Fumie Kumatani, Tomoya Otani, and Kenichi Tokoi. The soundtrack is primarily melodic rock with some hip-hop and orchestral tracks. As in Adventure, each character has a musical theme. The game features performances by returning vocalists Tony Harnell, Ted Poley, Marlon Saunders, Nikki Gregoroff, and Johnny Giole, and new vocalists Tabitha Fair, Todd Cooper, Paul Shortino, Everett Bradley, Kaz Silver, and Hundi P. Crush 40, consisting of Senoue and Giole, debuted on the game's main theme, Live and Learn. Production of the music lasted from April 2000 to February 2001. After this, Senoue, along with others, created sound effects. The team wanted Sonic Adventure 2's audio to stand out, rather than merely serving as background music. Senoue felt that some of Sonic Adventure's tracks were not as memorable as others. He and the Wave Master musicians made a pact with them to write songs that promoted the game's speed and situations while keeping the best tempo of the stage. Senoue wrote each track before producing a demo version, and mixed them with a Yamaha digital console and Mackie analog mixer. He edited tracks using a Macintosh, and after Sonic Team approved the music, Senoue finished sequencing it and sent it to the musicians for production. Now, several soundtrack albums for the game were released. Sonic Adventure 2 multi-dimensional original soundtrack was released in Japan by Marvelous Entertainment on September 5th, 2001. Sonic Adventure 2 Vocals Collection, Cuts Unleashed, an album with character-themed tracks by Senoue and Tokoi, was released by MMV in Japan on August 21st, 2001. And for the 20th anniversary of the Sonic series, Sonic Adventure 2 Original Soundtrack 20th Anniversary Edition was released on iTunes on June 22nd, 2011. And October 29th, 2014, a 2-volume original soundtrack was released on iTunes. The soundtrack was also released as a vinyl LP by Brave Wave Productions in January 2018 and includes interviews with Senoue and Izuka.
So as we mentioned, there were also some other versions, for example, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which was released in January 2001. Sega departed the console business to be a software publisher, and Sonic Adventure 2 was ported to the Nintendo GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on December 20th, 2001. Battle has more detailed textures and additional geometry, and adds multiplayer options including new abilities, upgrades, and exclusive characters. Big the Cat is replaced by Dark Chao in multiplayer mode. Battle also upgrades much of the Chao system, with the Chao stats viewable within the game. And the option to transfer Chao from Sonic Adventure 2 Battle to the tiny Chao Garden in Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2, and Sonic Pinball Party with the GameCube Game Boy Advance link cable. If a Game Boy Advance is connected without a game, a version of the tiny Chao Garden can be copied temporarily into the Game Boy Advance memory. This version also includes the Chao Karate feature. In Europe, Battle was marketed and distributed by Infogrames, following a deal to distribute Sega's games on the GameCube and Game Boy Advance. Sonic Adventure 2 was re-released in high definition on the PlayStation Network in North America on October 2nd, 2012, in Europe on October 3rd, 2012, and in Japan on October 4th of 2012. It was released worldwide on the Xbox Live Arcade on October 5th of that year and on Windows via Steam on November 19th. The additional battle content is available as downloadable content. On November 30th of 2017, the Xbox 360 version was made backward compatible with the Xbox One and was later extended to the Xbox Series X and S.
Now, Sonic Adventure 2 definitely left a pretty lasting legacy. We see Shadow and Rouge, who debuted in Adventure 2, have become recurring characters in the Sonic franchise. Both appeared along with new character E123 Omega as Team Dark, one of the playable character teams in Sonic Heroes of 2003, the follow-up to Adventure 2. A Shadow spin-off, Shadow the Hedgehog of 2005, expanded on the Adventure 2 plot and featured a similar 3D platforming gameplay, trying to make Shadow a little edgy, R-rated. With a few modifications, the plots of Adventure and Adventure 2 were adapted into the second season of the anime Sonic X. An American licensing corporation for kids entertainment hired an entirely new voice cast for the English dub, but the Japanese cast from the games reprised their roles in the original version of the show. And Sonic Generations of 2011, released to mark the series' 20th anniversary, contains gameplay elements and levels from various Sonic games. Elements from Sonic Adventure 2 included a remake of the City Escape stage, which we all love and know, in the console versions, and a remake of the Radical Highway stage in the Nintendo 3DS version. Shadow also appears in a recreation of his boss battle, and the BioLizard boss is recreated in the 3DS version.
So let's move over to wrapping this episode up. Let's talk about the general reception of Sonic Adventure 2. The Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure 2 sold around 500,000 copies, including 108,480 copies in Japan. The Escapist wrote that these sales were nothing to sneeze at, considering that the Dreamcast had already been discontinued at the time. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube sold almost 50,000 copies during its first week in Japan, where it went on to sell 192,186 units as of 2007. In North America, it was the best-selling GameCube title between January and August 2002, with 465,000 copies sold during that period. By August 2002, Battle had sold more than 1 million copies worldwide. By July 2006, it had sold 1.2 million copies and earned $44 million in the United States. Next Generation ranked it as the 42nd highest-selling game launch for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, or GameCube between January 2000 and July 2006 in that country. It sold 1.44 million copies in the United States as of December 2007, making it one of the best-selling GameCube games and the best-selling third-party game for the system. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle also sold more than 100,000 units in the United Kingdom, for a total of over 1,732,186 units sold worldwide for the GameCube. This adds up to a combined total of more than 2.2 million units sold worldwide for both the Dreamcast and GameCube versions.
Sonic Adventure 2 received several accolades, including the 2001 IGN's Editor's Choice Award. Screw Attack called it the 5th best Dreamcast game, and Games Radar rated it the 10th greatest Dreamcast game out of 25, stating, despite trailing off significantly in recent years, the 3D side of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise had a surprisingly stellar start with the Sonic Adventure entries, and the 2001 sequel really amped up the action. In February 2014, IGN's Luke Carmali called Battle his 10th favorite game of all time. In a video interview with Takashi Izukuwa, he says Sonic Adventure 2 is his favorite Sonic game. Sonic Adventure 2 received generally favorable reviews. Critics appreciated the game's multiple playing styles. According to Edge and reviewer Four-Eyed Dragon of GamePro, the core game's 3 styles and bonus features, such as the Chao Gardens, made the game engaging. Johnny Liu of Games Revolution praised its replay value of multiple playing styles and 180 different goals. Anthony Chow of IGN called it one of the best Sonic games, stating, "If this is the last Sonic game in these declining Dreamcast years, it's satisfying to know that the DC or Dreamcast, as they say it back in the day, didn't go out with a bang, but with a Sonic boom." In 2022, IGN would rank the title as one of the best Dreamcast games of all time.
The camera was largely panned. Shahed Ahmad of GameSpot criticized the cardinal sin of 3D platform games, forcing players to jump to an out-of-frame platform. Although players can reorient the camera with the trigger buttons, it reverts when the character moves. According to Chow and Liu, this made searching cramped sections of Knuckles and Rouge's levels frustrating. Edge found camera problems permeating the game with no significant improvement from Adventure. The visuals received positive reviews. Liu called the graphics sweet eye crack. Four-Eyed Dragon wrote that the game is simply jaw-droppingly beautiful, citing its detailed backgrounds and scenery and the characters' extensive color palettes. According to Chow, the game had some of the best textures ever seen. It was one of the most beautiful Dreamcast games. Edge was impressed by the texture detail and draw distance, and Chow, Liu, and Ahmed praised its 60 frame per second rendering speed. Sonoi's soundtrack garnered a positive reaction. According to Ahmed, the music was an improvement over Adventure's campy glam rock and J-pop soundtrack, with less emphasis on lyrics, and Liu appreciated its more understated approach. Four-Eyed Dragon called the music an eclectic mix of orchestrated masterpieces, guitar tunes, and melodic hip-hop voices that gracefully fill the game's ambience to a perfect pitch. Reactions to the voice acting were divided. According to Ahmed, the voice acting and the lip syncing in particular is executed quite well, and Liu and Chow thought the English voices were inferior to the Japanese ones.
The plot was derided, although its presentation was well received. Ahmed wrote, "Throughout the game, the plot becomes more and more scattered and lackluster, not focusing long enough on one element to execute it meaningfully." Although Liu agreed that despite the game's ambitious scope and themes, it failed to advance the series' core plot beyond the Sega Genesis Sonic games, and Edge appreciated the story's presentation from both perspectives, hero and villain. Despite high review scores for the Dreamcast version, the GameCube version, released 6 months later, received mixed reviews. Respective Metacritic and Games rankings scored 73% and 72.33%, repeating, of course. Critics generally felt that it was not significantly improved from the Dreamcast original. However, Shane Betterhausen of GameSpy saw Battle as noticeably superior. In addition to its upgrades, its action was better suited to the GameCube's controller than that of the Dreamcast's. So, as we are coming to an end within Sonic Adventure 2, it's good to note, like with those reviews, that we are seeing a game that is taking, I think we talked about the top, some of the best of Sonic Adventure, bringing in a new musical style, bringing in like a better evolved Chow Garden, bringing in some pivotal characters that we see later in the games. I think it is great to see this as being the marker of the final game for the Dreamcast versus some of the games before it and a lot of the games after it.
I definitely think that Sonic Adventure 2 is the peak of the series for Sonic games. Just hitting on all the right cylinders at the right time. Moments when these games are released, I think we've come to see through the amount of games that we've covered are just so important, because what your competition is doing, where the technology is, have you had a lot of setbacks? Have you tried to do too much? All those things make game development really difficult. And then you have the expectations of your audience on top of that. Sonic Adventure was a fun game. I think that to me, it's a little bit shocking to have as a reminder that this game comes out only 10 years after the first Sonic game.
Mm-hmm.
And that is crazy to think about because of, how much longer it's been now. Sonic, you have alongside Mario and, these other iconic characters. But yeah, I mean, thinking about this game and retrospectively, what it did for the Sonic franchise, I think is really elevated it and got people really excited about Sonic content if they weren't already from growing up with Sega consoles.
Absolutely.
The issue is, I think that afterwards, we see a huge decline in the Sonic franchise.
Yeah, I think after this, we see the take on 3D Sonic. I think they tried to experiment with way too much and tried out way too much. I mean, we're even seeing that in some of the more modern Sonic games that have just tanked, whether through just being, not fully QA'd and not having a game that works, into just having clunky styles. That really, the ones that are coming back are some of the, 2D Sonic, like side-scrolling platformers they're redoing again are fantastic. And it's a shame to see. I think we've always had this within Sonic games, even going back to the Genesis into the Saturn era, into beyond that. It was hit or miss almost every other game. And to have almost the best releases like Sonic 1 and 2 that we're seeing in Adventure 1 and 2 was so refreshing for the time and really pushed the gameplay elements that we didn't know we needed. Like having the Chow Garden was something I was like, I didn't think I needed this in a Sonic game, but for sure my little angel or devil Chow is going to race up this hill and is going to work their butt off to earn my love.
I mean, the game had an entire pet sim in it.
Yes.
Games just don't do stuff like that anymore. That's such a weird thing for them to be like, yeah, we need to really expand on this universe. So unnecessary, but so much fun.
Mhm.
Like that Raising Chow could have been its own like spin-off game.
Oh yeah.
Just a super fun time. But Sonic Adventure 2 and particularly Battle, which is the one that I owned. I didn't own a Dreamcast, but I had a GameCube. Just tons of fun with this game. Whether it be the 2-player modes, playing those with my brother, I think that those were kind of cool and fun to sort of race against each other. These levels, I feel like looking at them, obviously compared to today's graphics, really aren't that great. But I don't see a lot of room for improvement with a character like Sonic because when you start to get into this really hyper realistic type of environment, I think that Sonic sort of stands out. That was the issue with the Sonic movie originally, right? Where they tried to release this Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, what would Sonic the Hedgehog look if he was in the real world? And they came up with this horrible,
Mhm.
disgusting Sonic. And, there's some claim that maybe they did that on purpose to get some more hype for the movie. But then we see them put the more classic looking Sonic in its place, and it still sticks out. Like it doesn't look like it belongs in the real world, but it's the Sonic that we're all familiar with.
Exactly.
These games are always going to suffer from, I think, the same issues until they really lean into that cartoon element that they have with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, and again, like talk about the foibles of just what it took for Sega to kind of keep bringing Sonic in. They, as opposed to Mario, which again, Mario could have had some slip ups. Look at Sunshine. Look at going into Galaxy. I mean, you're doing these full changes in the gameplay. You're still having the general idea of collecting, whether it's a shine spirit or stars or moons or whatever you're collecting. You're still doing that, but in a whole new gameplay element that wasn't really Mario. Now, granted, Mario 64 kind of set the precedent for it and allowed for those 3D elements, allowed for more of that free movement. And I think that's what Sonic wanted to try and do. But with Mario, there really wasn't any flops. There were some that people didn't like. I wasn't a huge Galaxy fan, but it was still a fantastic game. With Sonic, they kept trying to reinvent things when they didn't have almost a clear-cut idea. And I think that's where Battle came in, or I guess Adventure, I should say, 1 and 2, was like, hey, it's coming to the end cycle of the Dreamcast. These are going to be the last games that are really on it. Let's put our heart and soul in it. And you felt it in these games. They were weird. They were silly. They were a fun story to go along with it. But the modes where you were either like Sonic or Shadow felt fast pace, felt crazy, felt exciting to do it. And the Tails and Eggman ones were still just as fun, almost puzzle solving in a way, trying to make your way through with the mech. Now, I was not a huge fan of like the Knuckles and like Rouge sections of it, but
No.
the music was still good. It was a level that you got through pretty quickly if you could track it down fast enough,
I
but if you
hated
couldn't,
I
yeah.
totally disagree with you because I hated everything about them. I hated the music. I always took way too long on those
Yeah.
levels because there was always one emerald shard that was just in a place that just didn't make sense.
Yes.
It's just like you searched around and then the camera angles on top of that. I hated those levels. They made me sick to the point to
Yeah.
where multiple times I had to put the game down. I think that overall the issue with Sonic sort of is something that goes back to its inception for me, where Mario has fast paced elements. You can run in the original Mario, Super Mario Brothers, and sort of speed through those levels and side scroll, but it's
Mhm.
not always to your advantage to do that. Being deliberate and slow and then mixing in some speed is sort of the best way to do that. Whereas Sonic is always just about going as fast as you can to get to the end of the level. It means to me skipping a lot of stuff that maybe has like secrets in it. Whereas with Mario, you can kind of stop, you can hit a block. Oh, that thing has a vine, a beanstalk that you can climb up, and now you're in the clouds. With Sonic the Hedgehog, there were, these little hidden levels where now all of a sudden you're like looking for a Chaos Emerald, and it's like, but you had to follow a specific path to get there. And if
Yeah.
you try and go slow and deliberate, you end up missing a lot of like loops and like jumps and things that you feel like you're supposed to be hitting as you go fast. So, where I think that games like Adventure and Adventure 2 were really successful is because they had breaks from that. Where so many of the early Sonic games, you're just going fast. It doesn't matter if you're playing as Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, like the goal is to go fast. This
Mhm.
game and Adventure have these different archetypes for those characters, where Knuckles is a treasure hunter, where Tails is this robot specialist, and then you have their evil counterparts. And I think that mixing things up within those genres is what kept this game fresh and fun. Because then you go into Sonic Heroes, where it is that team of three, and it's sort of the same style of, where Sonic came from, where you're just trying to get to the end of the level, and you use sort of your teammates to try and do that, essentially. And to me, there's just not a lot of room to operate within that game style. I think that they should have been leaning more into these really cool, like specific character archetypes. But at the same time, you've almost got to make three different styles of game within one to do that, right? And how frequently can you do that?
Yes. Well, quick fun trivia for you, Derek. How many racing games do you think Sonic has?
6.
11.
He has 11, 11
11,
racing games.
11 racing games.
See, it
Now,
feels natural, right, that he would have a racing game, but it's also like he's in a car. Why would Sonic ever need a car?
well, exactly. And I just wanted to bring that up because I was trying to talk about like not only have we seen Mario do this, Mario has tried a number of things. Sonic tried to follow suit with a lot of that. But I mean, there are so many Sonic games out there. And I think that's the thing of like Mario kind of lent this all around kind of plumber guy that, kind of got into these things, was a little fast, like you said, but had these power ups, had this variety that could jump into it. Sonic's fast. And so, I mean, you had a variety of arcade games, a variety of educational games, Sonic Cafe games, a bunch of spin offs. And it was tried and true through some of those, and it worked for some, it didn't work for others. And we unfortunately see a lot of those start to stumble. Even Shadow the Hedgehog, an M-rated style game where Shadow has a gun and shoots people, and it was like some of the similar platforming things and speed we saw in Adventure, and then we get into Unleashed and Generations and Lost World and Forces, and then finally Frontiers and into Dream Team. And it was just a lot of weird style choices, a lot of weirdness that, like, for most of them were mixed in reviews. They were fine. But one thing always comes up: the camera sucks, or the connectivity of Sonic, like jumping to stuff, sucks. So it's really good to see at least two in a row of these Sonic games coming out that did do well, that pushed the boundaries of where it was, and that really gave some people some interest, especially in a dying console that eventually brought over to the GameCube and kind of continued it out for a bit in some that did well, some that struggled.
I mean, I think that the Sonic team really has a lot of ground to make up when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to regaining the trust of their fan base, because there were so many stinkers that they released. I think starting with really the one that was really hyped up was sort of the relaunch Sonic the Hedgehog for the Xbox 360 came
Yes.
out, and that was a game that they really hyped up as sort of being this like new turnover for Sonic games, and then it was really bad. A lot of the same issues, weird environment, sort of like we were discussing, where it's just Sonic's a little out of place in that regard. And so I just think that maybe a little focus would do the Sonic series some good. I mean,
Sure.
you're right. They're on the right path. I think that people were happier with Frontiers in particular than they were, but you saw how quickly the prices dropped for that game because people
Yeah.
were not buying it. People did not think that it was going to be worth anything because of how many bad games had come before it in the Sonic series. And I like Sonic the Hedgehog, really quintessential 90s, early 2000s type of character that's a little goofy. You know, he's all about eating them chili dogs, sucking on chili dogs like John Cougar Mellencamp, baby. You know, he's he's just fun. It's just a fun character. I think that he has more potential in that space than like Mario does, even though Mario's trying to enter that cinematic universe realm. I think that Sonic leaning more into cartoony styled stuff would do it a lot of good, just my personal opinion. But they just haven't really done that yet. They want to put him in these realistic environments because
Yeah.
he's a hedgehog dealing with humans, you know. But I think that coming up with a more unique art style for Sonic and the world that he's in would do the series a lot of good.
Absolutely. So I think as we come to an end of our beautiful Sonic journey, let the people know, Derek, what is your final kind of rating and why do we choose it?
Yeah, I think that this game is really great, really fun. Hard to play now that all this time has passed because I think that graphically we've improved, camera angles have improved. It's very jarring sometimes. So I think that if you're going to go back and play this game, you're probably not going to be too happy with it. But if you grew up playing this game, you probably have very fond memories of it. It's like a 7 for me. Love, 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 love the music for this game, with the exception of the treasure hunting levels. I mean, that song from the first level where Sonic drops out of the gun helicopter, he
Mm-hmm.
escapes and he takes part of the helicopter and he snowboards down a street basically. One of the greatest video game levels I think of all time. But a lot of the other stuff I understand and agree with the criticisms, but I do wish that the franchise would get back to something like this. Playing as the evil character for once was kind of cool,
Yeah.
not something that was happening super frequently. And Shadow the Hedgehog, probably one of the like coolest anti-heroes that has ever made an appearance in a video game franchise, that goes really from that foe to friend. And I don't think too many video games do that concept really well, but Sonic has done it consistently well, with Knuckles sort of being a rival, and then Shadow as well.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think it's one of those things where you've added in such a cool cast into this and like creating, like you said, like such an anti-hero, such a really neat take on the Wario, on kind of that opposite of whatever your main character is, and has made it really fun. And it was really cool to reach back into like Dr. Robotnik and do, this really cool mech run into introducing Rouge and this type of stuff. it was such a cool introduction to it. It was such a fun gameplay. I really, really enjoyed it. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it, I mean, I have to agree with you, Derek. Like, I'd have to give it like Chaos Shards, like under a weird outcropping that you couldn't really turn under with your camera, but you had to kind of dig up and at an angle to get to it. And you kept going around it, and your thing's going crazy, being like, it's right here. And the thing's yelling like, oh, here's the hint. You're like, I know where it is. I just can't, I don't know where it is. Yeah, out of 10.
Yeah, you just keep digging over and over again, and then finally it comes out. You're like, I dug there. I dug in that spot. I dug in that spot. I'm getting like, honestly, I'm getting sick just thinking about the level. It's burned into my brain. That one level that's like kind of spooky, and it's like got this like a techno rap kind of vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just thinking about it. All of that just stressing me out right now. Research for this episode was done by Alex Kendall and Derek Baker. The intro and outro music for this episode was given to us by our friend Evan Barr, and our lovely artwork was provided by Aaron Shattuck.
Beautiful people, as well as the beautiful people over on our Patreon. You can check us out at patreon.com/finishthefight. I want to thank a few select members today with Snide T-Bird, Nick Hyman, Anthony Gooch, and Seth Ralston. Thank you so much for your support.
You can follow this podcast on Instagram or Twitter. We are also in Discord. It is free to join. There is a link in the description below this episode and our previous episodes. Would love to see you there.
As always, you can check us out over on Twitch. You can see me at twitch.tv/sourman70. That is twitch.tv/sourman70. As well as Derek over at twitch.tv/thebakerman247. That is twitch.tv/thebakerman247.
You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or most likely your favorite podcast listening platform. If you haven't yet, please drop us a review. It helps us out a lot, and we love to hear from you. There are also Q&As if you are a Spotify listener, where we ask questions about the episode. Go ahead and respond to one of those, and your answer may get published.
And with that, this has been our coverage of Sonic Adventure 2. Are there any other sequels or other games that we have covered in the past that you think we should cover another one in the series or the one following it? Let us know, as Derek has said. Reach out on our socials, hit us up, and let us know. As always, I'm your host, Alex Kendall.
And I'm your host, Derek Eggman.
And this has been Finish the Fight, a gaming podcast.